Wardens of Winter, welcome back to Winter Wolf's Den, where the fire is warm, the takes are hotter, and the stories run deep. Tonight we step through the wormhole into one of Sci-Fi's strangest journeys, Sliders, a show of brilliant ideas and absolutely unhinged disasters. Some episodes delivered peak 1990s sci-fi, proving the show could have been legendary. Others, well, let's just say getting unstuck from those worlds was a mercy. So grab your timer, watch out for the Kromaggs, and let's break down the best of Sliders right here on Frostcast. All right, man, we handled the best. Now it's time for the worst of Sliders. Staying on theme, of course. We're organized and professional here. This was very easy once we committed to another abrupt rule change, which we're known for on Winter Wolf's Den. We had a quick discussion in the middle of watching all of these episodes or making our decisions that season 5 was so bad that the ratings fell off so bad for the show by its end, by season 5, that it really didn't make sense to pick, in a way, the worst of season 5, because it also had the fewest number of people watching it, because everybody got off the train like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe we needed the worst of the worst. I mean, it is a best of worst of situation, but for Sliders, we wanted to pick the worst of when people still cared. I think is probably the best way to put that.
That would be the best way to put it. Yeah, the worst of the good years.
When people still cared. I mean, but there's just not enough room in the title to be able, or on the thumbnail, to put all that on. So I went back to episodeninja.com. You guys go check that out. Free plug for them again. And again, it was very easy. There were 2 or 3 that were like 2 full points out of 10, less than everything else. And I figured, because, you know, we're fantasy guys, you know, like we write stuff in fantasy genre, that those are kind of the movies we gravitate to. You know, they had one episode that was about what if prohibition was over caffeine instead of alcohol. Like, I mean, okay, again, that's that Mad Lib thing that Sliders did. Like, here's the noun, here's the situation, here's the thing. But they had a fantasy themed episode called Dragon Slide. And once I read the synopsis for that, I was like, all right, I mean, I guess that's the one we got to do for worst of. And I got to say, dude, it didn't disappoint for the worst of, because I thought it was pretty bad.
Oh, yes.
I mean,
this one was
laughably bad.
This was pretty bad. So my wife watched it with me, and she already watched all of the Sliders while I was out of town when I was on my traveling gig. And she's like, oh, you're going to enjoy this one. You're going to see why this one's probably the worst. And I mean,
I can't stop laughing.
So it starts in the 3rd season is where we're at. And this is when things really start going downhill. And a lot of it is because of the creative direction of the show changed. It went from a smart, cleverly thought out, working science and telling stories to a more action-oriented monster of the week type storytelling, trying to fall into that Star Trek model. And it just didn't work.
Parts of Star Trek model.
Yeah, the bad part of Star Trek model. Yeah. And it just didn't work out for this show. Plus, after, I was like, in the middle of season 3, it changed networks. It went to the Sci-Fi network. And their budget was cut almost in half per episode. So
that explains the dragon.
We'll talk about the dragon. Yeah, the dragon is the key to this episode, because there were actually some good storytelling parts in this. It had some points where it hits you a little bit, but then the whole show itself contradicted itself.
Put a pin in that, because I'm interested to hear what you got to say about that. Because whenever we do the worst of episodes, just like when we did Trek, you know, for our first episode here, whenever we do the worst of, I shut my brain off of doing any of that deep cut stuff, because I'm already just checked out in a way, because I know it's bad. Right. So I picked up on some world building stuff here that I liked. And I'll give you guys the 2-minute synopsis here. Is they basically slide into a world that incorporates certain elements of like Arthurian England. There's a magical myth. They have druids, but again, it's all still present day. Looks like San Francisco. It was called Emerus in this one. So maybe they by season 3, they have extended away from San Francisco, but they had a city at one point. So I'm like, it's probably just what they call San Francisco in this world.
That's what I was going with.
But it's modern. They have cars. Their police carry swords on modern uniforms, which I'm like, okay, that's a kind of a cool touch to world building in a way. But then they do have some weird contradictions here. And I'm curious if King has the same one that I noticed, where it seems like everybody in this world is afraid of the main villain, Gareth, because he's a druid he's a druid. The good guys are wizards. I think that's how it went down, right? So they're all afraid of this guy because they know he has powers. People know there's a dragon because it's fucking flying around in broad daylight. But then other people are like, no, that's all BS. And there's a psychiatrist in this episode. It's like, I don't believe in that stuff. I'm like, right, but the whole fucking city's afraid of this guy who lives in a castle outside the city and has a dragon. You dicks. So I don't know if that's what you were going for.
Yeah, that's what I was going with, where it contradicted itself, because you literally see magic happening, that they're druids. And now wizards aren't good guys. Wizards are immortal. That's what the wizards.
Okay, so
were.
it wasn't good guy. It wasn't good guys, bad guys.
No. Because I mean, you to look at Merlin, and what he did was both good and bad throughout.
No, I just mean in this episode. I just mean in the show.
Well, and but I was talking that Merlin in this was considered like true fact in that King Arthur's realm actually happened.
Yeah, my bad.
And the way they referred to him as that Merlin was a wizard, but he's immortal. So they're thinking someone else who is a wizard must be immortal as well. And because they came through their wormhole, Mallory was thought to be a wizard. And of course, his last name is a very famous clan name during this time as well.
Of course it is.
But the part that contradicted it is that you see that it has magic, and they have the druids and like shapeshifters and like body transportation and possession. But then
spells.
And then like spells, and then like they sell spell books. But then they tell you, and then you have the therapist that tells you that it's only for the weak-minded. Oh, a shape-shifting is not weak-minded. So is there magic in this world, or is there isn't? It contradicted itself just for the sake of the Rembrandt story in this.
Yep. Which at its heart is one of those things that I hate. We've talked before, when we talk about the like what I hate most in like sci-fi thriller stuff is the enemy within, like the parasite took over my body and now I'm working for the other guys. I hate that. I hate the love potion thing in any serial format show I've ever seen it in. I hated it on Star Trek. I hate it in Sliders. I hate it anywhere it comes up. It's always played so stupidly over the top that it becomes farcical in a way that I just can't stomach it. And I'm like, oh, this is so dumb. But they managed to kind of pull them back from the depths here in that B plot, where when they get to the resolution, they make it out that way Rembrandt's not infatuated with Wade physically, that it is more of a soul bonded kind of connection based on their unique experience as the non-scientists that are in the group. So like they kind of pulled it back for me a little bit.
The family found instead of the family you're born with.
Right. They really
like,
into that.
I love you like a brother type thing. Yep. And like, I would kill for you. No, I don't want to be with you sexually or anything like that. Right. It has everything to do with that love that's greater than just physical infatuation.
Yep, they rescued that part, but the A plot here is they slide in, they fall out of the portal just in time to see a runaway wizard's apprentice get re-kidnapped by a guy that can change into a falcon or a hawk or whatever it was, and they save her from him. And then one thing leads to another, and Big Bad, who employs the shapeshifter, figures out, oh yeah, it's a Mallory. I could use a Mallory if I can transfer my spirit in his body and unlock immortality. That was like the villain's main goal. So there's a lot of tropes that came up, and I think it's like you said, they get far enough into this show and they're literally just like, what haven't we done yet, Simpsons style? Oh, we haven't done the evil wizard thing. Let's do that shit.
Well,
and then they bang them out.
Yeah,
like tropes in this episode by itself.
As we talked about before, what did my grandfather always say? Don't try to put 10 pounds of done in a 5-pound bag. And they try to stuff it all in there. You had wizards, you had druids, you had shapeshifters, you had dragons. Demons, you had babies, you had dragons,
love potions.
You had the trapped last heir of a name, and then wizard.
That was actually some interesting world building. I thought that it was foretold by the gods that if you wiped a clan out completely, bad shit would happen to you.
Yeah, so it's actually a very known thing about in the Scottish, where the druids kind of came from, was the Highlands area.
So he took the last one alive and kept him in stasis in his basement. He gave him the Han Solo treatment.
Yeah,
which was kind of funny, I thought, but it was still, And then they try to do the they try to hit you with the Shrek Fiona stuff at the end too, where the apprentice had used most of her power to cover up a burn that she had received as a kid. And then when Quinn was stabbed fatally, because of course the professor had to stab him to undo the body possession thing, right?
Yeah.
She tried to heal him and couldn't, because most of her power that they set up was unavailable. So she had to lose the illusion on her face and become reburned in order to save Quinn's life. Now I'm thinking to myself, there's a council of 12 druids around this piece, and she's the only one that can do this. I mean, okay.
Cool, and they said that she's the only one who could do instant healing.
She's the only one. Like, okay, whatever, that's cool. But they made her give something up to do it. She didn't raise Skywalker the Sandworm in this situation. She paid a price for it. You know, like she was re-embarrassed and unsure of herself. And
her glamour went away.
Right. But then the last Mallory of the world was like, no, dude, you're still hot. We're good.
Yeah, we're good.
So, but Mike, dude, let's talk about the omega bad acting. I'm not even talking about the dragon yet. There were some dog shit performances in this episode.
Like Quinn Mallory, like it looked like he was just cashing it in on this one.
Oh yeah,
he's infatuated with a girl he picked up and put up and carried on a horse for like 3 minutes.
Right, and they walked out of the park. They literally walked out of the park.
And then he gives them to the police, which you would do if someone's assaulted, and then he feels bad about it, and it's like his acting was just so like rough.
The first 5 minutes of this episode were the worst I think I had seen in any of the episodes we just watched. Quinn was bad. The woman was bad while she was in the backseat of the patrol car, like, no, don't take me back. Please don't take me back to him. It was just bad. Yeah. And then evil henchman that was sent to take her back into custody was awful too.
Oh like, yeah, he was just horrible through the whole episode.
Oh my God, that dude was bad. I haven't seen anything since. It makes sense.
It makes sense. Like I would retire after that performance.
Yeah. I mean, I hear Best Buy has a pretty good middle management track. He's probably on that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's probably how that went. But I mean, because again, the only things that worked performance-wise was, John Rhys-Davies, Gimli. He's never going to be a bad throw, ever, in my opinion. Big Bad was cheesy for a villain, but it wasn't bad to me. Like he did the villain of the week, evil wizard thing.
Yeah.
I thought he sold that all right. Even the cops that showed up and took the apprentice back, they were okay. One of them was kind of a dick. The female cop was like the brave one that went back to try to like argue for Gareth to set the apprentice free. She got killed. I'm like, okay. So I mean, she played it normal, I guess. But dude, yeah, Quinn, bad. The Rembrandt under the love potion thing, not his fault because it's the love potion thing, but bad. I don't like
if you go back, even Rembrandt, when he first sees this girl, like all of a sudden she's supposed to remember who he is. I mean, it's not like you've been sliding for 3 seasons. The therapist. It's not like you've been sliding for 3 seasons and now
don't know
she's supposed to remember you and you say some song lyrics you wrote her in your world and she's supposed to know that.
Dude, that was bad because it's bad on the order that like he explained it to himself later when he was with Wade before they concocted the potion. He's like, I guess I really should figure out that all these people we know that we bump into don't know us. And I'm like, bro, this is episode like 85 total. Like you guys like figure some shit out.
By the way, if we didn't tell you, this is season 3, episode 7.
Yes, good call.
Dragon Slide.
Dragon Slide. Yeah, that it was just there's a lot of that stuff just fell apart in terms of how any of that worked. I mean, we got one part, the professor somehow knows that because Skuldar, the henchman, turns into a hawk when they go to raid the castle. And again, this castle, I guess anybody can just walk in.
Yeah,
like have fun storming the castle. I mean, literally, you just walk in. By the end, no one's even at the door. Yeah. But like the professor knows that he has to go get a falcon because in aerial combat, a falcon always defeats a hawk, I guess.
Yeah,
that might be a real thing. But not only did he know that as a physicist, but also he knew where to get a falcon in this world. And I don't recall them showing me the falcon shop earlier in the episode.
Nope. It was not a Chekhov gun type.
That's what I'm saying. I wasn't sure if I missed the falcon store. It'd be like somebody else, like, if you knew you needed a gun at the end of the episode, you'd have walked by a gun shop earlier in the thing. Hey, there was a gun shop back there and it said they were closed for renovations. And then you break in and get your gun.
Yeah.
Dude came back with the falcon in the next frame and like had Rembrandt throw it off the glove and chase the bad guy away.
Which totally outdoes his comment that he had in episode 2 is where biology is for scientists who are really bad at math or something like that.
That's what I'm saying. Like it just, I don't know, man. Like maybe the writers cashed in because they didn't think they were getting jobs on the new network or something, or they
Yeah.
weren't going to get kept after this season. But like, as dumb as this all was, still not bad to watch, in my opinion. I still didn't mind. Did you mind, or were you kind of groaning through the whole thing and like wished we had gone with the original season 5 bad episode where it could have been really bad? And I
So
watched that, by the way. It was bad.
when I go in and someone tells me it's a bad episode, I'm going in to figure out why they consider it a bad episode. I'm watching the acting, I'm watching the set pieces, I'm watching the props. So I get dug into the minute things of the episode. So I want to see what makes it bad. Because a lot of people have told me a lot of shows are bad, and I didn't mind it. I'm like, this plays out, everything works well. Maybe there was like a little misstep here, misstep there. Maybe it's a bad performance from someone, but this one like piled on the bad performance, bad props, bad setup, bad script. Like, and I can see why this would be considered one of the worst episodes of Sliders of the years that people cared. So when I'm going into this, that's one of the things I'm looking for is that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think you're right. This would probably be the same where, if we ever picked up like X-Files, best of, worst of, or something, the closer we get to that kind of bell curve of like how things were progressing over the seasons, where the first few seasons, they need to hit their stride a little bit. They got too many monsters of the week. But when Mulder and Scully really nailed down that chemistry right around like seasons, I think 3 and 4, people like banger, 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 banger. And then once, Gillian Murphy leaves the show, or David Duchovny left the show, and they bring in Doggett and the other one, you're like, okay, it's the cases are interesting, but the chemistry is not there. I get that. So I mean, maybe this episode of Sliders right here, even though it was the same 4 people, it was all still the OGs. Maybe it was it, and they just started seeing the writing on the wall. Because I think this was about the point where Sabrina Lloyd, who played out Wade, knew that her contract for sure wasn't getting renewed for season 4, and that's why she is out at the end of this season. They brought in Maggie.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what happened there.
And according to my wife, who watched the entire run of the series as well, she believes that it starts really going down when they kill off Maximilian. Like that was kind of the big turning point of the episode, which made sense. Like he was the big heavy hitter because, like, yeah, Jerry O'Connell was the headliner, but he had that and when it came to his name. That's when you that's the person who brings the following. So this guy's the lead, but this guy has the fans. And when you take that out of the show, plus you break up the original chemistry of the 4 when you start changing the cast. Anytime you start changing cast, the writing's on the wall for the show. Usually it does not survive.
Oh, 100%, man. I mean, we've seen that through the decades, man. And so going as far back as like the Brady Bunch, when like Cousin Oliver shows up, for Christ's sakes. Married with Children had that where they brought in 6 as the Bundy's adopted cousin son thing, whichever. I think
when they changed the dog, all these shows have done these. When they changed the dog, and
they went from Buck to Lucky, but that's because Buck needed to be retired. Like the owners insisted on that. I was sad to see Buck go. We should do a best of, worst of that show because they're all great. That's neither here nor there. This show, I don't know, do we want to talk dragon, or is it even here's the dragon again?
the thing is that this came out after Jurassic Park.
That's what I wanted to say.
It came out after Jurassic Park, so there's good CGI. So first off, you get a scene where the apprentice is trying to escape again, and a big claw comes down, like a giant claw that could pick up a person, comes down.
Dude, I forgot about that. It was so bad.
Yeah, but then when you see the dragon's like human size coming through a window, and the other part
next to a table.
The part I actually made a comment about was when you had Maximilian Artero in the park looking for Mallory, and he's yelling his name, and then a fireball comes out and hits him, and he rolls around, he looks around. But when they cut back to him, he's just wandering around the park again, not looking up, wondering, in the open, still looking for Mallory. So it's like, it didn't even happen. There was not even scorched ground where the fireball hit anymore.
Let me tell you about close air dragon support in fantasy shows, right? When they ran up against that situation in House of the Dragon last year, these guys moved an entire army through the woods 100 miles out of the way of the last known location of a baby dragon. They're like, yeah, no, we're not fucking around. They moved like 1,000 mounted horses through the woods as opposed to taking the road because they knew a single strafe barbecues everything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But no, the professor, and God love him, he's got to be like 105. So he was like 205 when he filmed Gimli. This is not a young man in great shape. It's like obviously a stunt double, but like the really bad CG fireball comes down, does no damage to the ground. It's perfectly manicured lawn after it hits. But my God, does he tuck and roll? Like it was a pretty good tuck and roll. It was all right. It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad at all.
Yeah.
But the dragon inside was bad, dude. When he just stood there, all gangly and shit, I'm like, is that a dude in a bad suit, or is this not? I don't know.
Yeah, the visual effects were really bad. The show contradicted itself. The whole only a Mallory can wield the sword. Why?
Dude, how did you even remember? Dude, well, his name was on the sword.
Yeah, his name was on the sword.
It was on the sword. Dude, that reminds me of the best part.
Mallory.
Right? So the dragon's next to the table, breathing fire everywhere. Should have set the whole thing on fire because, as we learned from the Acolyte, stone burns. Thought I'd throw that in there as a funny, right? They take cover behind like a stone altar, the four of them, the whole group, right? And I think it's whoever says, it's Mallory's got to get the sword or whatever. But they literally say that after Rembrandt had already played the hero move and went to get the sword and couldn't get it. He comes back. They're like, only a Mallory can use it. And he's like, why didn't you tell me that before I went out there? And I'm like, dude, they let you do that. They literally watched you do that, fail, and barely get back to cover. And then, of course, Quinn grabs the sword. And we get some really bad, like, PS2 acting against a blue screen. Like, he's holding this sword vertically in front of him with, like, no friction, no resistance. And they're throwing, like, CGI dragon fire at him. And he's like, I can't hold it. I can't hold it. And Wade's like, throw it or something. It'll kill him. You can't miss. I think the apprentice said it.
Yeah, apprentice said that.
He gives it like the hammer toss throw, which I thought was kind of funny. And of course, at 8 feet away, right into the dragon heart, and the fucking dragon dies. I don't know.
But you forgot the other best part of this.
There was more?
Where Mallory was like, you got to distract him. He said, what do you want me to do? Throw stones? He's like, do something. So he gets up, he throws a hammer. The dragon just straight like Matumbos it. And then stands there. And then he gets up and runs and gets the sword. Like that's
yes,
really bad editing. Really bad editing in that.
Dude, throw stones, throw shovels. There you had flatware. That's exactly what I mean. But the best part of that shit is the distract him thing only works when the four of us are standing shoulder to shoulder behind the same altar. Like the field of view kind of covers that not distracting thing. The distracting thing works when you're over here behind him. And you go, hey, dickhead. And he turns. And then Mallory throws the sword.
Earshot where he can hear you. Distract him. Well, don't fall for that.
Dragons, not supposed to be dumb. In any game I've ever played, they're not supposed to be dumb. Hyper intelligent, more than people. High spell casting levels, the whole nine.
Yeah.
You know?
Which is actually a funny joke I saw today, and it's totally off topic, but it was like, why are vampires always rich and like have these huge houses? He goes, well, if you live for 286 years and you're still poor, just walk into the sunlight, bro.
Seen it. Well, all great jokes aside, I think that probably wraps it up for us with sliders on the best of worst stuff. This was definitely the best worst of so far, because even the worst episode of Star Trek, the original series, probably ranked out better than this did. But yeah, we got to get out of here. That was definitely the worst of.
Yeah.